Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the ReQuest. It's me, Captain Logan, and joining me as always is Austin, the Day Ghost. Good evening, Austin. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Hey, Cap.
You look perplexed.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it was because of the music, but like your audio cut out like really quick.
That happens with Skype when I play music with people.
It normally does, but the last few times it hasn't. So that's why it took me out for a second. I was like, "What?"
Yeah, sorry about that.
No,
you gotta
it's
just
okay.
expect it. That's why I don't change up my opening that much. I
It's
figure
been
my
so
co-host
long
will know
since
what I'm
done it.
saying.
It's been so long since it's done it. It shocked me.
Anyway, what's going on with your drink cup? It looks like you want to show me something.
Yeah. Hey, Cap.
Yeah.
You are win.
You know why? Because cheese.
Because cheese. And for those of you who really care, this other red word is the French word for win.
Oh, yeah, good to know. There will be a test later. Everybody make sure that you're taking notes.
Exactly. I will make sure to ask that at the end of the show.
Now let's give out a whole bunch of random details about Far Sector right away so that everybody will know what they have to study for on the test later. So it's 12 issues long, and it's from 2019 to 2021. I guess this took or 2020, yeah, 21, and then it wins a Hugo in 22. That's why I was thinking 22. So yeah, it took 2 years for this to come out, even though it's 12 issues long.
Weird, yeah, just super late, I guess, on things.
And it's from DC's Young Animal line, and it's a Green Lantern book. So everybody that hasn't read this, those are important factoids that will be on your quiz later.
Can I complain about the Young Animal thing for a second?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, before you do that, let me just say that tonight's comic was requested by Joe Turner, which is interesting because the name of the main character in this book is Joe.
Are you the person in this book, Joe Turner?
And I don't know if Joe Turner is male or female, but it's spelled the same way. It's J-O. So it might be another girl named Joe, but it may not be. We have almost no women who watch us, so probably not. But yeah, complain about Young Animal.
So my complaint with Young Animal is that it's just kind of confusing, right? Like, we already have Black Label. Do we need another label thing for stuff? I don't know. I think it's weird. They should have just stuck with Vertigo and just printed stuff under that. I don't know.
So in the defense of it, and I may be mistaken because it's been a while, I'm like walking on eggshells, wearing kid gloves every time I'm talking about newer comics now because I've been so out of it that I'm afraid everything I'm saying is inaccurate because I'm just going on 4, 5, 6-year-old memory now. But if memory serves, Young Animal actually predates Black Label.
No, it does, but it's one of those like, I think I went to Black Label because I think Black Label just sounds better. Like, when you say Young Animal, I don't necessarily think, oh, that's a label that we print things under. It
doesn't sound like a line at all.
It sounds like a book.
It's not like Milestone.
Yeah, I don't know, and it's just, I don't know. I think it's confusing.
I think it is too, and yeah, maybe we should have retired that when Black Label started. I was actually kind of shocked when this was requested to find that it was so recent, because when I see Young Animal, I don't know what that emphasis was. I think about like right around beginning of Rebirth. I think that's when this label started, was right around 15, 16.
Well, wasn't Young Animal created by like a member of a band or something that went to DC and was like,
oh really?
Something like that, I think. I remember hearing about this.
They had some books that were like brand new ideas and other things that were kind of like reworking old titles. Like like Shade the Shape Changing Girl or whatever it wasn't that under Young Animal? Because you had Shape the Changing Man, and then later they either gender flipped it or they just made a female version. But I think that was under Young Animal.
I'm not sure.
Jeff Gearhart says it sounds like an Animal Man prequel, and that's what I keep hearing people say about this. That it's like, how is it not related to Animal Man? I don't think it is in any way.
Young Animal is made and developed in collaboration with the lead singer of My Chemical Romance.
Oh, that's right. Now that you say that, I remember that report coming out.
That's so weird.
When that started. Yeah, I thought the idea was this was like DC's teenager line.
That
Or
I think it also kind of sounds like that, and maybe it is like if we read other Young Animal stuff. Because when you first mentioned it, because I hadn't heard of Young Animal until you said it to me when we were doing this book. But my first thought was, oh, this is clearly what that I'm Not Starfire book was put under. Like it's like a part of like a young adult line.
yeah, and I think this particular book has a lot of young or a lot of juvenile fiction sensibilities.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
for
it's
sure.
also in some ways written like a Black Label book, and it would be kind of weird if this is supposed to be the teenager line and it's got as many F bombs as it does. This has more F bombs than the Catwoman book had,
Yeah.
which had a decent number of them, but this, like, increasingly, it seemed like it had the opposite of the Logan problem.
Yeah, well, and then there's, retroactive Black Label stuff where it's like not inappropriate,
Yeah, why is that under Black Label at all?
like All Star Superman or New Frontier.
Yeah, Far Sector. I still don't understand New Frontier. I can't get my mind around that. And like we talked about this a week or two ago, but like there's some disturbing stuff that happens in that book, but it's not Black Label.
No, like there's a little bit of blood, but it's not crazy. Some
Yeah,
subject matter maybe, but like nothing crazy. I don't know.
yeah. I would almost put there are several other things that I would put there even before that, right?
Hmm. No, there's like even just at Marvel, like on both sides, and just like regular '70s comics, that's way worse.
Yeah, why can't I think of things right now? The future DC book I'm always talking about that I like and you don't.
Future DC book that you like and I. Oh, Kingdom
Yeah,
Come.
Kingdom Come. I would almost put Kingdom Come in Black Label
Kingdom
before
Come
I would.
is in Black Label.
Oh, is it really? You didn't just say that, did you?
No, I didn't. But
But it is too.
it is too.
Okay, but I buy that before. Sorry, I couldn't think of it just here in the moment.
No, I couldn't either.
But
My mind went to Batman Beyond when you said future.
I would almost put Kingdom Come there.
Hmm.
I almost buy that more than I do.
No, because I think some of the Vertigo stuff's even been adopted. Like I want to say
New
Watchmen is
Frontier.
Black Label, but
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Well, anyway,
Anyways,
we
now we're just
digress.
reviewing the Black Label
Let's
again.
yeah, we just can't get away from it. Well, people have been requesting a lot of Black Label stuff lately, and a lot of just new DC comics in general. You notice how people have, in general, not been asking us to do new Marvel stuff? That's
I've
interesting.
noticed that too. Yeah.
I'm still getting people asking me to do Immortal Hulk, but we haven't had any like straight up requests yet
Hmm.
for any Marvel stuff
No, like
within the last
when
4
you
or
put
5 years.
out when we did Batman the Imposter, when you put out like just feelers for like, hey, what do you guys want us to read? It was almost all DC, and one of the first things I said to you after the fact was, I can't believe nobody requested Fantastic Four Full Circle.
Yeah, yeah, you
I
were
don't know,
talking about that book. I think we did get a Spider-Man request last year, didn't we?
oh, are you talking about Life Story?
Maybe it was Life Story. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
and
was
even
more.
that's a few years old
Yeah,
now,
but it was
but
a
it's still
little more
more
recent.
recent.
Anyway, let's
Yeah,
talk about Far Sector. Once again, 12-issue maxi
spinning our
series.
wheels.
This introduces a new Green Lantern named Jo, who goes to she gets sent to, as the title suggests, a far sector, way farther away from Earth than I think the idea is any human has been, or at least any human has gotten a mission at, and she is dealing with a what's called a trilogy of uh, of races that all have like kind of grown up together and had to figure out how to live together, and they have purged their emotions, at least ostensibly, and there is a drug on the street that is helping people get in touch with their emotions again, and again ostensibly wreaking havoc on the society. And there's kind of two mysteries happening. One is about murders that are occurring, and apparently, again, ostensibly, allegedly, the first... Really, I can't even give a synopsis of this book, Austin, without just saying nothing that we're talking about is actually exactly as it seems. Everything with the setup of this turns out to be wrong later.
Hmm.
And I think that's why there's so much Matrix iconography in the book. It keeps going to Matrix stuff. But
Explain why there's
I just figured I'd do the
why it's
synopsis
living
this time
dead
because I always make
stuff.
you do it. And you read this a week ago, so I thought you might appreciate that.
See, I figured you would go, haha, you've only read this a week ago. Do a synopsis.
Nah, I was trying to help you out. I was trying to
Well,
be
thank you,
charitable.
thank you.
But like I said, kind of twofold mystery. So like kind of a whodunit. Who's committing these murders? How are there uh, murders? Like centuries since the last one apparently, and why does the council? In this planet know that these things are going to happen. Like they bring in a Green Lantern in the first place because they expect this to start happening, and then the other part of the mystery is what is the conspiracy that is like what's really behind the drug, because there's more to it than just people want to get in touch with their emotions again, and I think it all kind of turns out about as you might expect, but we'll talk about it. So Austin, why don't you get us started and just tell me what your kind of first impressions were of this book, just getting into it, like after your first issue or two, and then all told when you got finished with it, what'd you leave with versus what you were feeling as you first started reading this book.
Yeah, so I feel like I have a vastly different review depending on where exactly you stop me as I'm reading this book. So right from the get-go, first scene, I'm hooked. Like first scene, I'm in this. I'm ready. I'm like, here we go. Where it starts off, you have a murder, and it's very like Blade Runner-y, and they have a lot of that iconography, where like they're flying in a flying car, and they have the billboard all along um, the buildings. And I'm like, here we go. Foreign like alien planet, Blade Runner, Green Lantern. Like, what a great concept for a book. Immediate next scene completely throws that out, and we never really get back to that feel. But I'm still pretty with it. I think a lot of the dialogue and word choice is very awkward from the start all the way through. A lot of just like modern day stuff, like one of the alien races are called the at-ats, and one of them, like the first at is like like they're basically Twitter handles, and like all of their names are Twitter handles. Like um the main Green Lantern woman, Jo, she has a an at that is like her personal um like not servant, but like kind of helps her out with some of the tech stuff. And I'm trying to remember what her name is, but it's like it's just straight up a Twitter handle where it's like at whatever name 64 or whatever. And I was like, I don't know, I don't really like that. Uh, and just
Yeah, it has something.
mhm. Yeah, exactly. It's like I don't know,
I'll look
at
for it. Some of the
Space
names are not
Battle
sticking with me with
79.
this. Yeah, and she's like obsessed with cat memes
Well, apparently
and will
that's their
not stop
entire
talking
race
about.
is
That's the currency.
their currency is just memes, and boy, do we hit some outdated places there. And like
I'm
even like
okay
the
with the outdated thing because they're getting those things from Earth, but it might be an excuse to go back to some of that stuff that the author, remembers and doesn't know when else she'll ever be able to talk about it. So, like, I get if you think that that's forced, but I don't really have a problem with it being outdated. The bigger thing for me is I don't pay attention to memes, so I didn't understand any of that. Like,
no, exactly, but that's what I mean by like the outdated thing. And there's a lot of it that's very in the moment, and anybody in the future that reads it's going to have the like confused thing that you have with it. And I'm like,
yeah, it
I
dates
think
it.
it's silly to date your book like that. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Like I don't find that funny, but
No, I think it's weird too because it's dealing with a lot of ideas that it's making the argument are timeless and are problems that like our society should have gotten over by now but still hasn't. And the idea is our Green Lantern goes out to like the farthest regions of the galaxy and still finds a civilization of even different races. And I like this idea that because they are more or less human, They have the same sort of, chemical makeup that we do. They face all the same social problems that we do, and it bothers her that she's finding the same kind of bigotry and lack of empathy and power corrupting and all the same problems that we have here on both a personal and a larger societal level. And I think that's kind of the point of it. So when you're making that case, and I think it does that relatively effectively, especially toward the beginning, does it make sense to date your book like that? How readable is this 10 or 20 years after this? It really does feel like almost unintentionally disposable.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because the exact thing that you described is very universal. And so to kind of take that and go, okay, well now we're gonna put it in this exact moment, and that's not to
Yeah,
say
and
that.
not just with the technology, but also with just what's happening in our world right now, where you have that thing where, and sometimes I've seen this done more effectively than in this book, but you have uh, like situations that are metaphors for things that then we just come right out and talk about what they're a metaphor for, and things that happened like last Tuesday.
Mhm. Well, and I was going to mention
That
that
dates it
too.
too.
Because I don't think that works especially well here, but there's definitely books where it does. Looking back at something like the first two Ultimates, where it's very 2000s, or I think Austria Under Suicide Squad has that, where there's like a specific point in Austria Under Suicide Squad where Reagan is a main character, and then they swap and it goes to Bush because the elections happened, and like it's very tied into what's happening in the moment. And I think some of that stuff, it depends what it is, but I don't think the meme thing works for it. Like it's like it almost feels dated to me now, even though it's stuff that's currently happening. Because I know in like a minute it's not going to be a thing anymore.
Yeah, it's so informed by Twitter culture. And one of the things that makes it weird, by the way, that character's name is Can Has. I don't know why I couldn't think of that, but but that, and maybe my favorite character in the book, even though I got tired of the cat meme thing. I like some of her dialogue is fun.
It's just kind of happy.
And the idea of, yeah, and I just like the vernacular of the AT-ATs.
Mhm.
Like, so, like some of that is interesting. Their culture is really interesting, and we'll get into some of that stuff here in a little bit. We're gonna, by the
Yeah,
way,
for
talk
sure.
about this in a very overview sort of way because it is 12 issues, and I only had a chance to look it over the one time. And there are definitely some bits of this, particularly toward the end, that I don't think I fully grasped first time around. So take some of my criticisms with this book with a grain of salt, because on a second read there might be some things that make a little bit more sense to read, less convoluted than on just a first read. But I will say, just getting this out right away, and we'll talk about everything here in a second. But by the end, Austin, this book did kind of lose me. I felt like, particularly in the last 2 or 3 issues, things got pretty convoluted.
Mhm.
I felt like,
Well,
and
that was one big thing I wanted to ask you, which is,
yeah,
do you think it's too long?
I think it's much too long. I think this story could be told in almost half the number of issues. Maybe I'll be generous and say 8. I don't think it needs 12.
Yeah, like it definitely feels padded in places, and there was a
And
lot
just
of places
decompressed.
where, yeah, exactly.
And it's asking you to hold on to threads and mysteries too long in places, I think, where after a while I kind of forget that we're dealing with certain things that finally come back, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Like this is a 12 issue maxi series, and we still don't know like who's killed these people at the start, and then when you finally, and like we stop worrying about that because we get into kind of larger social implications, and it kind of feels plotted issue to issue to me by about the middle, where it feels like it knows where it's going, and it's got a real grasp of its narrative until about the halfway point. And then I feel like it starts to kind of spin its wheels a little bit and starts to be too driven by exposition.
Mhm.
And then when you
Yeah.
get to the last couple of issues, we just get a lot of information dump of, okay, this is what everybody's motivations are, and what the big conspiracies are. And I don't know if I buy all roads leading to where we end up at the end. And more importantly, I just don't know how compelling some of it is.
Yeah, well, and I had the same thing that I had with the Catwoman book we did on Monday, which is that I think by the end it kind of turns into schlock, and it kind of becomes nonsensical by the end in the climax.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt about it too.
Mhm.
Which is a shame because I think it's got a great setup.
Yeah, and both have villains that I feel could easily yell kill the heroes, but don't.
Yeah. Well, and this one's weird because, and I kind of want to applaud it for this, you actually don't know who the villain is through most of the book.
No, it does play on that mystery aspect, and you don't really learn until what, the second last issue?
Yeah.
Hmm.
That Glory, the councilwoman,
Yeah.
is behind a lot of it. And also interesting is, and yeah, we're gonna spoil things, like we always do with vaults. This is a ReQuest, but it's comics, so it's also a vault. I wonder if maybe actually we should have gone in a totally like non-spoilery place with this, because I don't know how many people have read this book. I'm not sure how well read this book is. Like I said, it won awards, and some people seem really enamored with it, but I don't know how many people actually took a look at this.
Yeah, because I'd never heard about this until
I
we
hadn't
got this
either.
request, but I also don't hear about a lot of things. So.
Yeah, so that doesn't necessarily tell me anything because I've been in the dark.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little bit less in the dark as we're doing more recent stuff, which is
Mhm.
nice. But we didn't give credit to the beginning. We should do that. N.K. Jemisin is the writer, and she, I think, had already won. What was it, an Eisner or something for fiction? So she's well known in the science fiction community, I think. And Jamal Campbell is the penciler here. Why don't we talk about art just for a second before we get back into story stuff?
Yeah. So
And
Cab messages me today, and he goes, we're just kind of talking back and forth about the
yeah,
book." And I go, "Oh, the art's really nice." And he goes, I don't really care much about it. It's too digital." And I go like, "Oh, like it looks, hand painted." And in my mind, I'm imagining, um, like Superman Earth One, Volume 1 and 2. Like that's the art I'm seeing. And I look back and I go, "Oh yeah, it doesn't look painted."
it really doesn't. I mean, it's maybe sort of going for that look while being done in digital. I don't think it's bad or anything. It's just not really my cup of tea.
Yeah, yeah, and I do think the book looks good, but you're right. It's not like brilliant or anything.
The case can be made that with all the uh, like technology stuff, with what this book is doing thematically with with the way the internet has changed us and social media, it makes sense for this book to look more digital.
Mm.
I can totally see that argument. I think it turned me off a little bit right away. Like you were really liking the noir sensibilities of it from the beginning, and I I I, I do too, at least. Atmospherically, but right away I'm going, oh, this kind of looks like an underground book,
Hmm. Yeah, no,
which
that's
is not a
fair.
bad thing. It's just I'm reading Green Lantern and I'm going, oh, this looks like something somebody like made in their computer,
Hmm.
and not for a big house. And I don't mean to say that it doesn't look professional. It just
No, but
it
there
looks like a
is.
dynamite book or something. Like
Yeah, no, and there's definitely a difference in the look towards traditionally drawn comics and digital, and it's I can't fault anyone for not liking the digital look as much.
no, and I think I adjusted to it, and it started to feel like it belongs with this material. But
Hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely.
and also just personal preference stuff. I don't
Yeah.
like word balloons that don't have lines around them. I don't know what that is.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that immediately with this book made me go. That's one of the big things that made me go. Oh, this looks like kind of a indie or an underground thing.
Hmm. Yeah, I didn't even pick
It
up
always
on
feels
that. You're
unfinished to me when we do that. Or maybe it's that along with the choice for lettering. But yeah, this is
right.
all personal taste stuff. This is not actually a problem with the book.
Hmm. No, absolutely.
There's some really nice color work, particularly in the last couple issues,
Hmm.
that I like quite a bit. And let me say, I like her costume a lot. I think it's really neat.
So I'm mixed on her costume. I don't know. I don't dislike it. I think it's okay. I think I like the coat kind of look that it has.
Oh,
But
you just got upset when she took that off because it didn't feel like a noir mystery anymore.
no. I did like that too. I meant like what she's wearing right there in that image, where it kind of looks like she's got like a coat.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
The big thing with me is I don't really like the like librarian glasses.
Yeah, I understand that, but the actual suit itself, I think, is cool because
Mhm.
it looks like a cop costume or outfit.
Mhm. No, absolutely.
And not only are Green Lanterns space cops, but her background is police officer.
Mhm.
So I like that she has like a Green Lantern badge, like where a cop badge would go.
Yeah. No, that is true. My whole thing is just I don't like the the big glasses. I think that looks silly.
Josh says, "Oh yeah, modern Image comics love dialogue balloons without the outlines." Yep.
Curse you, Image.
RJ Godzilla, is that the Green Lantern Bendis created? I thought this was uniquely hers.
I assumed he was making a joke, like it was like a Riri Williams thing. But did he
Oh,
create a Green Lantern?
I don't know. Yeah, no, maybe that is a joke. I don't know.
The only thing I know that Bendis has done at DC is what Superman and Justice League. I haven't really been following his.
Well, he was
Time there.
doing what was that book called? Batman Unlimited or Ultimate or
Oh,
he
he
did
was doing
several.
the Batman thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Interesting.
he did several things over there. I had the first couple issues of that.
Yeah, because I watched his
That was kind
interview.
of anthology-esque, I think. I forget. I may be wrong about that.
Yeah, because I watched Bendis's interview on Millar Time, and he was like, "I don't want to do Batman." So I assumed he just never touched anything with Batman besides Justice League, of course.
Like I said, I don't know if that whole book was his or if
Interesting.
it was like an
Yeah.
anthology thing where people came in and out, but I know his name's on the first issue of it.
No, for sure. Anyways.
But yeah, moving right along. This this whole story is premise-wise very Star Trek, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's
And
just very sci-fi in general. Like when I started it, I was like, I'm kind of digging this. I wish it was more the Blade Runner thing, but Cap's gonna really like this book.
yeah,
The-
well, the Star Trekness of it is a double-edged sword for me because on the one hand, and yes, you're right, just general. I can't even say space opera. It's your kind of political thriller set on a strange planet. And it's very much like a TOS or a TNG setup where you come upon a planet with warring factions trying to figure out how they're going to get along, or you get to a planet where there was a horrible war, and TNG does this kind of thing more often, and the peoples have figured out how to get along and it's been working out for centuries and it looks like a utopia, right? But then when you start peeling it back, their solution is horrific. Like the way they've managed to figure things out is to lose some piece of their humanity in order to survive, and it's unsustainable. And that's the kind of plot we have here.
yeah, that's the TNG version, and then the TOS version is like,
It's a
oh,
computer that's behind everything, and then
uh,
Kirk has to shoot it with his phaser.
well, I was gonna say the one race is like monster people that are like eating everybody, and then Kirk has to punch out their leader. Um,
That too.
but it could be either or, and
Usually it's
I
an
want to
evil
see that.
computer. Uh,
I want to see Shatner punch out a computer.
yeah, and then I feel like the choice where one of the races turns out to be cannibals is maybe like what the Orville would do with it. And then
That
the other
doesn't like
thing
TOS, because TOS so often goes to like a horror place.
it'll
Like it would
do.
definitely go to the this alien thing's eating people.
Yeah, no, I could totally see it going to that. I guess yeah, with like the M113 creature and stuff, you don't really see that so much with like with actual what's the word I'm looking for, humanoid characters. It's usually, like actual monsters.
Hmm. No, absolutely.
We have some really interesting cultures here. Uh, you've got the race that, like we said, that are cannibals. I mean, I don't know if you really call them. No, I guess they are because they do eat, they do eat their own race too, right?
Hmm.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say
they
for a
do.
second, I was gonna say it's just other races, but they actually eat their own, and it's this spiritual thing for them where there's a certain degree of mutual respect that typically they have to have before they do that, and they have to get. It's almost like a sexual thing
Hmm.
where they have to get consent from the
Yeah.
person that they eat. And then my question is, how many people are actually going to go in for this? Like, I kind of wondered about that.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, because it's like a spiritual thing where it like bonds the two of you.
Yeah,
And
it's
I don't know. I don't want to be eaten.
yeah, it reminded me a little bit of like the founders, and you don't know about this yet, but the changelings in Deep Space Nine, when they like bond, but they're not like eating each other.
Oh, okay.
And then you have the race of AIs with the AT-ATs, who sort of live like computers and biological entities at the same time. And that I thought was kind of the most fascinating and fun thing to read, particularly when we go to their world, and that's where it becomes very much the Matrix.
Yeah,
The Matrix ends up being like
absolutely.
like an allegory, just like for what the Matrix is an allegory for in the Matrix, and then we literalize it when we actually go there, because we already have Matrix iconography in the book before we even go to the AT-ATs. What do they call it? Atville.
Yeah,
Where
yeah, it
we
was
where
Advil.
we go to their realm and she's able to jack into it, which by the way I didn't buy at all and didn't understand how she was able to do that, particularly with a ring
Yeah.
that has less power and she can't even really shoot beams out of it and stuff, but she can convert herself into energy and go into a computer world. I didn't really understand that.
I would be interested to talk to the person who wrote this to ask like how much they know about Green Lantern. And I don't mean like the prove your geek cred thing, but I just mean like I get the sense that they're probably not big Green Lantern fans, and like part of the premise is like, okay, set it far away from everything so you don't have to deal with anything uh else related to Green Lantern stuff. And then like her ring's different, and like they make a point that it's different as well, but like I don't really understand why.
No, and there's a mystery made of that, and unless I miss something, we never go back to it. Now, to be fair, I do get the sense that she really wants to write a sequel to this and is expecting it to continue to permeate, because this is not like the Black Label books we've been covering where it's its own continuity. This is in mainline DC continuity, even though it feels like its own thing,
Mhm.
and I respect it being a maxi series like this and kind of closed off where she can do anything she wants with it because she's so far removed from everything else, but it is still mainline continuity. We're there's kind of a, like I said, a mystery made of for some reason the ring is like less powerful than the regular Green Lantern rings, and she doesn't need a power battery, and it
Mhm.
works somewhat differently, and it's got like this ornate shape to it, which is kind of cool looking.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, that's the big thing, is that she doesn't need to recharge her ring. It recharges over time, just slowly.
but we're told something else powers it,
Hmm.
but we don't know what, and I don't think that is ever revealed unless I miss something.
I don't think so either. And there's the whole part when she gets her ring where the Guardian's like, oh, this ring, it's not as powerful as the other rings, but when you get used to it and you like fully understand the power of it, like you can cripple planets.
Yeah.
And then that never real like that feels like foreshadowing to something that never really happens.
Well, and there's a number of things in this book that felt kind of inconsistent to me, where we'd get a setup for something, and then later on it would be talked about differently or almost like it's opposite. So maybe the idea is supposed to be that she's got to tap into, she doesn't understand the full potential of the power, but the way it's initially introduced, that felt retroactive. Maybe it's not, but I do feel like there's a little bit of communication issue from the writer with this, because at first we're told, like, well, she's not going to be able to solve her problems the way a regular Green Lantern would, and she's going to have to use more diplomacy, which again just makes me wonder, like, why did she get this particular ring? Maybe the idea is for the mission she's on, she needs to be reined in, and she's got to handle things with a little bit more finesse. But then also, this is not really a character that's especially about finesse.
Mhm. One, because I'm not like a big Green Lantern person, as we talked about when we did the
Rebirth.
Rebirth. Yeah. But I always thought the whole thing with Green Lantern was that, like a Green Lantern dies and their ring shoots off and finds somebody that's worthy. I didn't think Guardians came to you specifically and went like, here, do you want this? But then at the same time, like it's a different kind of ring. Like I guess it's like a prototype thing. I don't know.
Yeah,
So like it's also different.
I didn't understand what the Guardian was doing. I don't know why the Guardian is in disguise.
Yeah, we talked about this off camera, but the Guardian comes in and she's like shapeshifted into somebody else.
Yeah.
And I don't know enough about Green Lantern mythology, so I don't know if that's a thing that they can do, but I always assumed they were just big blue head people.
Yeah, one thing I would want to ask Jimison if I talk to her about this book is how much of what's here are ideas that she had for maybe an unrelated project that she then worked into a Green Lantern story, because it really kind of reads that way to me.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a really good point.
It almost feels retrofitted, I guess is what I'm saying.
Mhm. Yeah, I would not be shocked if that was the thing. Actually, now that you say that, I want to say there is something with that where she had this character in mind, and then she got a job at DC and was like, okay, I'll just do this character that I already kind of had in my head
And like make it a Green Lantern now.
and make it a Green Lantern thing. But I could be wrong about that, but I think I remember hearing something about that.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. This is not us saying that that's what's going on, but I would want to ask her that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And
I
to
mean,
be
that
fair,
that does happen. Like, I mean, that's what Thanos is.
yeah, and
Like,
it can be handled very effectively.
yeah.
I don't think this is a bad Green Lantern story. I just don't understand why the ring has to be different.
Mhm. No, absolutely.
That's kind of the main thing, but it's all about emotion, purging emotion, the necessity of like willpower, and how important emotions are to being a Green Lantern, and then by extension, or I should say, maybe that's even an allegory for being a for being a police officer, like what is that balance that you need between objectivity and emotion? I like all of that, like that thematically obviously fits very much into the world of Green Lantern. But Austin, I feel like this whole thing is built on a really faulty premise. And it was the main thing as I continued reading that made the thing kind of continue to fall apart for me, unfortunately. And like I said, I love a lot of the lore with this, and there's some really nice world building. The species are all fascinating. The big problem for me is, and maybe this bothered me more because I am a Star Trek guy, but when you say this race of three different species, or this what do I want to say? This society of three different races, a little bit like the Zindian Enterprise, if anybody knows what I'm talking about. Except they had 5. They used to have 6, but the Avians died out. But they had 5 species that all And I wonder if this informed this book at all, actually, because it might have. But they all are like dominant species of a single planet. So instead of having Austin, one dominant species of intelligent life forms, they have 6 that grow up on their planet, and they have to figure out how to get along, and they create a council, kind of like with here, and it breaks down like it does here, and we do a whole season about it, about the politics of that in Enterprise. Some of the best stuff in that show, which isn't saying a lot because it's not a great show. But anyway, I was reminded of the Zindi while reading this. When I see a story, a science fiction story about the importance of emotion to human beings, and how we need that because fear is important in seeing where the edge is, because empathy is important to have regard for life, and we're not just taking advantage of people and killing people, but then even with some empathy, we're also capable of horrible, horrible things. So that's like, the kind of dichotomy of humanity. When I see a story that's about that, and you tell me that you have characters that have ostensibly purged their emotions, what am I expecting, Austin? I'm expecting stoicism. Right? I'm expecting Vulcans. Now, is there another possible take on emotionlessness that wouldn't look exactly like Vulcans? Maybe. But if you tell me that not only have all these people purged their emotions, but did it, most of them, against their will, and there's a technology that was enacted on them that made them lose their emotions, and they wished they had them, kind of like Data in TNG. You cannot make me buy a scene when we're first introduced to the council where they're all screaming at each other. It doesn't make any sense. It took me forever to get there, but I don't understand that. They're very emotional all the way through.
Yeah, there's absolutely parts where we just kind of go like, but they're showing emotion, even though that's supposed to be the whole thing, is that they can't show emotion. And there was a point, I forget which character it was, but
you had one character who said, like, I can't even grieve, and I'm like, you look like you're grieving right now. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm sorry, what scene were you going to talk about?
No, I was gonna say, I think there was a point where I was like, oh, this one person is like showing emotion even though they shouldn't be. Like, is that gonna be like a twist? Like, am I supposed to be picking up on that? And then it didn't go anywhere. And I can't remember who it was. But there's just like places like that where I'm like, they're clearly showing emotion, and that's like a thing that they can't do. And
I don't get it.
One person says that they like fear having emotions. And
yeah, I sent you that panel. That drove me bonkers.
Yeah, and it's almost weird that they never really connect the Green Lantern thing with that, where they go,
true.
Because that could have been like a good commentary thing where they go, yeah, but willpower is not an emotion, and you could have maybe connected that. Especially because when the Green Lantern, like when Jo goes to that planet, she's given the option to remove her emotions or not, and it's kind of something she has to deal with. Is you have all these emotional people that are like, you're crazy, you have emotions.
Yeah, it's wanting to put her in a position where people look down on her and are bigots to her, and trying to compare that to issues she had when she was younger. And I do think that some of the political and social stuff with this book is a little heavy-handed. That part of it I thought was okay. The idea that because she's not, even though everybody else is emotional, but we're told that they're not, because she has emotions, some people look at her as lesser and weaker, because after all, not having emotions for centuries is how they've kept the peace, and they look at themselves as enlightened because of it. That makes sense to me. And I also like the idea that she worries that her emotions might be a liability, and I wish we dealt with this part of it even a little bit more, that we brought this more to the fore. I like the idea that Jo might be kind of waffling, trying to decide if the society maybe has it right, and this is what Earth should have done all along.
Mhm.
especially with her background, which again I think is a little obvious and a little heavy-handed, a little in our face. But
It's just like a step or two that's like a little bit too far, and
it protests a little too much, I think.
yeah, absolutely. I just had a thought though that I hadn't considered, but is it
Yeah.
also maybe part of the social commentary thing that she's a woman and like that's the kind of stereotype that women are too emotional?
Oh, maybe, but she's also dealing with a lot of female characters.
And that I was gonna say that too, and I don't know how well that works when you also have other female characters that are. I mean, because the ads seem to be emotional. I don't know, because you have the one that she works with that's like the. Because I'd say there's what, three main women in the book. You have Joe, you have her one cop friend, and her companion.
Yeah.
And her companion's like entire thing is that she's just like super happy 24/7.
Well,
So
and we're
like,
told that the AT-ATs were like the most emotional of the races, which I think is maybe just supposed to be kind of an irony.
yeah.
But I also like that idea if they're born out of social media. Like that makes a lot of sense
Mhm.
because they're obsessed with memes and everything, and they talk like they're on a Twitter feed.
I'm saying they should be bipolar then.
Yeah,
They should be super,
yeah.
super happy and then really, really angry.
See, let me step back for a second and say I
Yeah.
like the quirkiness of all of that,
Mhm.
but I something about it just didn't fully register with me or ring true because it's like you're so far removed from Earth cultures. And again, I do like the idea that even going this far, you can find people that are just like we are because at the end of the day, a person is a person. But why do they have something so close to what we do as the internet, right? And
Mhm.
like why do they put things in the same kinds of terms that we do? Why do they even have memes? Like if we gave them the idea of memes, that's one thing. I was a little bit lost on that point. I wasn't sure if they invented that separate from us or whatever. But it's kind of like how often, say in 60s science fiction, would you go to a planet and see people with televisions? Like not very often. The technology would be a little bit different. And here there's a lot of futuristic technology, but then also their internet is like the same as our internet, and
Yeah.
it's a pretty imaginative book, but that kind of holds it back and makes it feel a little bit less so.
Well, and it's weird too because they have this. This is where I'm like, oh, this it gets too modern in places, but it's like they have like meme farms where they have people that are like kidnapped and maybe they're not kidnapped, but they're like put into these facilities where they're put
She
on the
calls them
drug because
sweatshops.
yeah, exactly. They're like meme sweatshops where they're like put into like the computer space where they can put memes out there and they're given the like emotional stuff and oh
I
my
feel
god,
like everything they would put out would be super depressing.
yeah, it's like
Right? Like I had a hard time buying that they would come up with anything fun even on the drug.
mhm.
Because
All
all
the
the
memes
drug
they're
does is allow
creating
you to
is
access your emotions. And we do this in Star Trek all the time, by the way. We'll find various ways to let a Vulcan experience emotions. TOS has the episode with with the flower that hits Spock, and he accesses his emotions again. One the site of paradise. Austin, one question I had for you is this drug actually dangerous? Because by the time we get to the end of the book, I feel like both sides of it have been played, and I don't know where we're landing on, except that Joe wants to try it, which seems like a really bad idea if you already have emotions. I'm not sure what that would do to her, but
well,
she's like,
it's not that she wants to try it, she wants her like cop companion to try it.
I thought the way she was talking about it was like we're gonna do it together, almost like we're gonna go smoke a bowl or something. That was that was how it read to me.
Some ad just bought that as a meme, sir. Yeah, maybe, and I'm just not remembering it correctly. But I thought it was just that she wanted her like
Again,
girlfriend
Reddit
to.
one time. I might be totally off on that, but
Reddit one time, eh?
So, but is the drug actually dangerous? I feel like we never, or I
I don't think so.
you don't think so?
I
Okay.
think the implication is just that it, makes you more human in that way. Um, I don't know. I think the talk that it's dangerous just comes out of they're all worried about what they're gonna do with their emotions, and I guess it's
Well, and
dangerous.
also a means of control, right?
Yeah,
It's the government manipulating things. I feel like there's an analogy for almost every major real world like conspiracy or like, and I mean actual conspiracy, not like conspiracy theory stuff, right? Like that's the opioid crisis.
yeah. Well, and
Like that's all that is because
that
we
was another thing I was going to
yeah
bring up is that the first time that Joe interacts with anybody that's on it is the one counselor member, and him with emotions in that first scene is just drunk. Like
yeah.
that's kind of how they play
Are you
it. Where
talking about
it's,
the one that she kind of falls for
yeah,
and sleeps with? Who
yeah, exactly, because he goes like on and off it.
and he is the reason that the one of the big reasons the book gets pretty convoluted by the end, because he has retroactively, and we're told that he's a chess player and that he's always a million steps ahead and all of that. Like she thinks she's covering her bases with that. It gets pretty sloppy, I think, because we get to a place by the end where he says, everything he's done so far was set up in order to get a revolution started, if I'm reading it right, and that even getting her there was part of that, where like he just figured if there was a Green Lantern there, shenanigans would happen and he could start his revolution. And I was like, that seems a little bit easy. And then I wondered, because we've got this kind of like multiple personality thing going on with him, that I feel like I can't decide if she's walking it back or what, but I was a little bit confounded by some of that because at first when he's not on the drug, he's charismatic and seems emotional, like everybody in this book that we're told doesn't have emotions. But he also is like cold and methodical. And when there's a protest, he orders his soldiers to fire on a crowd, and that understandably upsets Joe. And then later, he is on the drug and apologizes to her for that, and says, and he has kind of an opportunity for change off panel, and says, that was a mistake, I shouldn't have done that, I feel bad about it now, but what you have to understand is I'm a different person when I'm taking the drug. And then later he has another, and they get together, they sleep together, and then later he has another speech about how he is the same person on or off the drug. And I didn't fully understand that or why that came up the way it did. And then where I say it's getting convoluted is toward the end, he says that even ordering the soldiers to fire on the crowd was part of his master manipulation scheme. So was he indeed remorseful about it when he told her he was? Because that scene makes a real big deal out of how presumably genuine he is.
Hmm.
But then I guess he wasn't, or is it because he was on the drug and now he's not on the drug? Or I don't even know if he's on the drug when he's saying that toward the end. Maybe he just did it to get her to sleep with him. I'm not sure. Again, one read, but I'm
Yeah.
not totally sure.
Hmm. No, absolutely. No, I'm not entirely sure what's going on with that, and I don't know. It kind of just plays like, oh, he's kind of mean when he's not on the drug, and then when he is, he's like good enough that they can sleep together. I don't know.
Yeah, I just thought that was kind of sloppily handled and a missed opportunity, because I thought the idea that some of these characters might be almost literally different people on or off the drug was kind of a good idea.
Yeah,
I
because you would be if you lost all of your emotions. You'd be almost a completely different person.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because we're talking about how important emotions are to the human condition, and how you have to have that to be yourself, which is why the these people want the drug in the first place, and why there have been, we're told, a dozen uprisings where
Mhm.
that were swept under the rug. And that's the first place where I went, oh, she is like really cribbing from the Matrix. And then eventually just comes right out and makes it really clear how much she is. Actually, she already has with one weird page where Joe is Morpheus.
Mhm.
We'll talk about those in a second because that whole
Yeah.
thing is strange. But I don't know how well you know the Matrix, but did you have that thought when the council tells us that they have quelched uprisings 12 times, and every time it happens, all they have to do is stamp it out and start over, and then they're in good shape again. That's the Matrix history. That's like we have a kind of perfect version of the Matrix, and then the human beings kind of pick up on what's happening, and they start to wake up, and so we quelch that and we start over, and then we try to kind of create a new Matrix. It's that whole idea.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
keep
So
starting it over.
I didn't have that exactly. Like, obviously, I knew there was a lot of the Matrix in this. My main thing was there's a ton of equilibrium in this, which is one of those like
And
post
I've never seen that.
Matrix. It's one of those like post Matrix movies where like it's very much cribbing on that. But that whole movie is like a 1984 society where nobody can have like everybody's emotionless. They all have to take pills to lose their emotions, and
Yeah.
like you're legally forced to do that. And then the main character
Okay.
is a cop.
Did
It
they
was
feel
Christian
like
Bale.
they don't have emotions in that?
Yes,
Okay,
because they all walk around like
because they don't hear.
they'll walk around like, hello, hello, parent. You're let's go for
They
breakfast.
should be more zombie-like, and it should be disturbing.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing that made this feel kind of like juvenile fiction to me. Whereas,
Yeah,
like, here's
absolutely.
this underlying, disturbing, horrifying idea, but we've got to make it fun for the teenagers that are reading it.
Mhm.
So it's all gonna be like only relatively messed up, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense. And most importantly, everybody has to speak uh, as informally as possible. Like if you didn't have emotions, people are not gonna talk on such a personal level like they do in this.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
I had a really tough time with that.
Yeah, no, I had a really rough time with just word choice in general. It was all across the board, very, for lack of a better word, modern, and just like it would take me out.
It just didn't fit some of what the goal seemed to be here.
Yeah, exactly. Because premise-wise, like it's like we keep saying, like it is very much like a classic kind of universal sci-fi story.
And I'm not complaining that the book is because sometimes when I criticize a thing for being for seeming too heavy-handed or whatever, people go, "Oh, you don't want politics in your comics. Comics have always been political in some way." I I don't mind the heavy issues with this. I like the allegories. Certainly, some of it is definitely laid on too thick to
When I
me,
mentioned
and
earlier with
yeah,
Ultimates and Ostrander Suicide Squad, like those are both books that have the president of the time as like major characters. Like it doesn't bother me when we get into politics and stuff. It's just it's all like just how it's handled.
yeah, and I don't want to say that it's forced in like this is a story that like this person didn't want to tell, and it's like just agenda driven. I think it's more complicated than that. I just don't think it's as effective as it ought to be in integrating some of that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, like I absolutely think this is a book that the writer wanted to make, and a lot of those points are stuff that they wanted to talk about, and I don't think that they go
And
against what the book's
yeah,
doing.
and they should.
Mhm.
That's fine. Like write
Yeah.
about what you want to write about. And you don't want just your character to be a mouthpiece for an idea. I do think Joe is an interesting enough character.
Mm.
I like her as a protagonist. I feel like there are places where I I don't know if I want to say cutesy or what, but like where she'll seem a little too over the top.
Yeah.
Where I'm not sure she is totally in character anymore. But I was enamored with her from the beginning.
Yeah, no, I liked her as a
I don't
character
think
throughout.
she has the Eric Burnham problem. I don't think she's I don't think she's like perfect. I don't think it's we want to have like characters to represent ethnicities and genders and stuff that don't get represented enough. So we have to make her like absolutely perfect, can do no wrong. That has been an issue sometimes. I
Well,
don't
we
think
kind of
it's
we kind of
that.
flip it completely, where there's like whole sections where she doesn't have her Green Lantern powers because of
Yeah,
how her ring works.
that's true. But I mean like
Yeah,
characters that can do no wrong, like don't have any real flaws.
yeah. I know. I
Because
just meant like she's not like overly powerful. Just walks in and can solve everything. Like we do have moments of weakness.
but
There's that.
there are examples that I do feel like are kind of forced in to show uh like problems with systemic racism and that kind of thing that I'm not saying don't talk about those things. I just it doesn't always ring true to me. There are bits of it, particularly with her background, where I'm like, I don't know if I buy the situation. I don't
Why?
I don't know that and like I will admit certainly that there are life experiences that I have not had that would inform some of this stuff. So maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Like I always try to come at this with some objectivity where like I clearly have not had the background that the writer has had, but I want to use this as an example because this page bugged me. I don't understand what's happening here. We have this scene where her family, after her graduation, goes to a restaurant and they're sitting. This is just one panel that I'm taking completely out of context, but there's not much context here. It's
It
kind
just
of
kind
just
of jumps forward.
it's a montage. It's a
Yeah.
montage of kind of like awful things that she went through in her past. Some of it is about racism. Some of it is like 9/11 is in there, and then I assume they're still in New York City. They go to a restaurant and they're sitting right in the middle of the restaurant, and a like what looks like a 20 something, maybe early 30 something white guy is waiting their table and comes up and says, you guys have been sitting here for 5 minutes. You have to order something or I'm going to make you leave. And, oh, actually, she just says, we've only been here 5 minutes, but he says, you have to order something or I'm going to ask you to leave. What is the point of that panel? Like, is it this guy is singling them out because they're the only black people there? There's no other black people that I see in the background or anything, but like, why is he treating them like that? Like, am I supposed to buy that this is a huge regular problem in early 2000s New York City? I'm not getting it. Maybe this makes sense to somebody. I'm not understanding it. I'm having a hard time not going. Like, is it just that they're poor and they can't order anything, but they just need a place to go? Like, I don't know what this panel's about, Austin.
Yeah, it's
And
just racism. Uh,
but do you buy that?
um, I don't know. Like I said, different different backgrounds, but like I lived in a city that was predominantly Indian people. So like I saw a lot of racism when I lived there, and like I can't say I've ever seen anything like this. But like I said, uh, different places, and
I just feel like I need more
I also
context
live in
for a
a
thing
different
like that.
country,
Like,
so like
yeah,
um,
but all
well,
I'm saying is, it's when you work a thing in like that, the situation has to make sense. It's got to ring true. Just because it has happened to you doesn't, and that's unfortunate. That's awful. And I don't mean to sound unempathetic, but I like with anything in a story, I it's got to be effective. It's got to not take me out. I've got to buy it in the moment. So like, if I need, if you put something in your story that feels like it's implausible, and I don't mean this example now, but just something crazy implausible that doesn't seem like it would ever happen, but you go, oh no, it did happen in real life. Well, stranger than fiction. If you can't integrate it in your story right, and I don't buy it, it doesn't matter that it could actually really happen, right? And there are a few of those things here, particularly with some of the social and political things, and that's a problem because it's so easy for somebody who might be like weirded out or doesn't want any politics in their comics to single stuff like this out and say, see, this is why we shouldn't have these things in comics. I'm not saying we shouldn't. I'm just saying I gotta buy it, and I don't know what's happening here.
So I think for her backstory, I think the 9/11 thing is really good. I like that because 9 that's a weird thing to just say, right? uh, so 9/11 happens and she's like shocked, horrified, and like that makes her want to, be a force for good in the world and pushes her towards like a more military background. And I thought that really worked. And then you have stuff with her in the Iraq War, and then it goes from that to um, like police brutality, and my mind goes, okay, I get the police brutality thing is especially topical right now, but like I feel like you would be more traumatized by the Iraq War aspect, and I think that part kind of took me out, especially when like you're the invading force, right? Like I don't know, like that was just kind of the way that I looked at it. Um, and I thought that was kind of strange and part of why it felt kind of ham-fisted, where it was more like, no, no, this is the more important thing, is the more topical thing.
Yeah.
While I felt like the other one would impact a person more. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Like, and especially because I think the example that it is with the police brutality, you probably would have seen on a wider scale in the war aspect.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know what I mean? Like,
Well, and like, why not make that part of her war background?
and it maybe would have been more interesting if we saw that in
Or
the
or
war
compare
aspect.
them, like say that sorry, that like the
Yeah,
military background on top of the police background is part of, because she keeps saying I was taught to uh like take advantage of my position and I like shoot first and ask questions later. And
mhm.
maybe the idea is supposed to be that the war background was also part of that.
It's
But
just
it seems like she's
underdeveloped.
only talking about that one isolated incident with her cop partner who shoots someone in front of her and she's too scared and doesn't do anything about it. And what I do like about that is how that informs her later in wondering if maybe just purging yourself of emotions is the way to go. Because if only she hadn't been afraid, she would have stepped in and done something. And I like the idea
Yeah.
that you build up your willpower after that and you're in a place where you can be a Green Lantern because you don't want to be like that anymore. It gives her kind of like an almost sort of, in a weird twisted way, an almost like a tragic Batman backstory where it's
Mhm.
like, I want to make sure that doesn't happen to anybody else and I feel responsible for it.
Well, I feel like the way to like easily rework this to make it work, I think for me, is you have that aspect in the war section, and because we already have, she's in the military and goes, I can't handle this, and then becomes a cop instead. All you have to do is show examples of that when she's in Iraq, and then when you have the example when she's a cop, just go,
That's the
oh,
straw that breaks the camel's back. Like, I can't even get away from it when I go home.
that's exactly what I'm saying. Is it was one thing where it was somewhere else because everybody on the planet goes, well, the bad things are happening elsewhere. It doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
But then when it happens at home, that's a completely different thing where you have to stop and go, wait a minute, like even here I can't get away from this. And that would have been the way to do it, but I don't think the hammer hits that nail
No, I
in
don't think it does either.
effectively, so it
And,
comes off
and I
ham-fisted.
also get, again, communication problem, right? Like
Absolutely.
like I also get it's more personal for her maybe because it's a black man that gets shot.
Mhm.
But you're right. It should be at the top of a pile of things, maybe, instead of just that.
Yeah, like I just kind of look at it and go, yeah, like I said, I think the Iraq thing would impact somebody more, but like I just said how I would rework that, and like I feel like that would hit closer to home, I think, and kind of explain it a little bit better. I don't know.
And I don't mean to talk in circles, but I think it's important to reiterate this point, and would then maybe help it to not feel like you just made it that because it's in the news right now.
Yeah, exactly,
Because when
exactly.
you do that, it can look like it can look kind of pandery. It can look like you're just preaching at the choir. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't talk about those things if it like really drives home for you. And I don't mean to say that all comics should be escapist things. I do want some variety in my comics. I do want there to be some escapist stuff that I can go to where I don't have to think about the horrible things that are happening in the news every day. But should we like completely avoid that in fun superhero fiction? No, because a lot of my favorite comic stories are about heavy themes, and also this is trying to do both, and I just don't think it's quite sticking the landing on it. But I respect her for giving me a fun, quirky sci-fi story where I can sink my teeth into the world building and the fun out there, like alien race stuff, and then also try to talk about some important things that you make allegories for. And I'm also not saying that it has to just be allegorical and you can't mention the things that they're allegories for, because I've seen Star Trek do that really well in a lot of places. I will sometimes complain when things don't do that because they feel just agenda driven. And I just think there's a communication problem here. I don't know.
So if you
What I
don't
mean is, it
mind,
doesn't feel mean spirited. I feel like our heart's in the right place with it, maybe.
no, I do too. I don't think it's especially well handled. But if you don't mind, I will plug not Spanier and say that I sent you an issue about police brutality of Man
Yeah.
Thing, which is I think the third issue of Gerber's run of Man Thing,
And it's
uh,
really good.
and it's really good. Um, and
It's
that's like fully
powerful.
about it, and
And not
like
just police
yeah, I would
brutality,
call it
but
haunting.
but like and systemic racism.
Yeah, exactly. No, when I
Or
read
maybe
this,
not systemic, but at least
mhm,
I mean maybe that's in there.
yeah,
It's about one white guy who's kind of a supremacist that hates black people and abuses his power because he's a cop.
mhm. No, exactly.
I
Uh,
used to avoid a lot of these political topics, by the way. When they show up in a book, I have to talk about how they relate to the book, of course. I don't
yeah,
want to turn this
no,
into
no, and
politics solution, but that's what the book's about. So,
yeah, no, and I think that Man Thing issue is very haunting. Well, here I look at it and I go like, you didn't handle this especially well. Um, so
no,
it
that's a
depends
wonderful
what it is.
comparison.
Hmm. So I don't know. That's me to throw out people who go, oh, you just don't want to see this stuff in comics. Like, no, it's 100% you can do this stuff. It's just how it's handled,
Uh,
like anything else.
yeah, one of the best, and this is not a great book, of course, but one of the best issues of Spawn is the kind of like don't beat your children PSA. I mean, like I've liked really heavy stuff in my comics before.
Well, the best panel in Spawn is, I'm Wyatt. Or whatever it is he says when he transforms the first time.
No, he yells, "I'm a black man."
That's what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he's only able to turn into a white man, and then retroactively, McFarlane says that the person that he looks like is an actual real character. Do you know about this?
I remember that slightly from watching Spanier, yeah.
Yeah, the white man that eventually ends up with the Spawn suit. I
Oh, that's right.
when Al Simmons goes to hell is the guy that he turns into when he's trying to uh be able to look like a regular person, and part of his curse is he can't look like himself and he can only look like a white man.
Hmm.
And I get that that sucks for you, but I don't know. I'd probably just walk around like the white guy for a while so that I didn't look like a charred corpse.
I mean, I would rather look like a charred corpse than like anyone else. So.
Hey, we are already well past an hour, and we've talked this over, at least overview-wise, pretty well, but I wanted to bring up just real quick, because we said we would, the weird recap pages?
Yeah, so the recap page. So okay, first of all, um, I think it's weird for like a maxi series like this to have recaps. Like, I don't know. I think at a certain point you can go, this isn't an ongoing. Like, either keep up or don't.
And the
Uh,
majority of people are going to buy this in trade. This is a graphic novel before it's a maxi series, which is
One
part
hundred
of
percent.
why it's too long.
Yeah, no, 100%. But all the recaps are just reference. Like, and the first time it happened, which is the Morpheus one, where you have a white background and then she's dressed as Morpheus, she sits down and I think she holds up the two pills and it's like, this is Far Sector. And I was like, what is happening right now? Like, and then
Because you
we
don't know
cut
right
it.
away that it's a recap page.
No, and then we cut into the next scene and I'm like, did that happen? Like, am
I
I
guess
on
not.
drugs? Like, what's happening? And then it gets like worse and worse as it goes along. Where like you have, the one that you're showing right now, and you have like a Night of the Living Dead one. I remember where she's like holding the door so that zombies can't get in, and that one's weird.
Deadpool ruined comics, right? That's what we've learned from this.
You could have stopped that sentence at Deadpool ruined, and I would have agreed. But yes, absolutely.
It breaks the fourth wall, and the characters are telling you what's happened previously, but then they're pretending like they're in scene with this one in particular, with the romance with the counselor guy. Where they're kind of looking off panel, and she's like, no, don't don't break character. We're trying to explain what happens in this book.
Yeah.
Like, it's sort of funny. I don't understand it. I don't know why we're doing that.
It's
It's
just more
very awkward.
confusing than anything. And like you said, reading it in trade, it was especially awkward because we would get a cliffhanger, and then I'm like, oh, what's gonna happen? Flip next page. Oh, I'm in like Star Trek now. What's happening?
Last thing I want to ask you is, did you feel like the resolution was a little easy? Like, I like the status quo at the end, where we have kind of it is sort of a tear down the system story, but like you get the sense that we've got a long way to go. Like, these people, even though I don't buy that they don't have emotions, because they clearly have emotions, it's going to take them a while to get used to having the thing that took their emotions away shut down. I like that they're gradually introducing it. It's not the Kirk versus the computer thing. Like, they're taking it away over time. That's all good. But I feel like all she has to do is have a big speech with somebody that wants to drop a bomb, and then everything's kind of over. And I couldn't decide if that was too easy or not. I think the reason I felt that way was because that character is introduced at the 11th hour, and I wonder if maybe we should have met her earlier.
Well, yeah, because they're never even referenced until like maybe an issue or two before, where it's like, oh, he has a sister. And I was like, oh, okay. That's like a weird detail to throw out because I'm sure it
I
doesn't
missed
really
that.
matter.
Yeah.
And then
Then it
sister comes
does.
up again, and like, oh, well, it's a good thing I remembered this one throwaway line. Absolutely. Well, and then when you get to the at that's the kind of villain, and her entire thing at the end is just, arg, I'm gonna destroy everyone, and then I'll be okay because I'll live in the at world. And the heroes are like, no, you can't. You're computers, and you can't survive without organics, idiot.
Why didn't you think of that? You see what I mean? It
Been looking
feels
at too many
plotted.
memes.
It feels plotted a little retroactively at that point, where it's like, is it? This might be unfair. Is it a little bit of that mystery box thing, where like at the point where we have to finally tell you like who's behind everything, we're sort of rolling a d20, like.
I mean, Possibly, yeah. I didn't have that thought, but I wouldn't be surprised. That's kind of infected
And maybe
all of
she knew
pop
who it was
culture.
all along, but had a hard time just making it interesting.
Forget going back in time and like killing Hitler. Can I go back in time and kill Damon Lindelof and J.J. Abrams so we
Don't
don't have
say
to deal with
that.
that?
Don't say that, because then if you ever get your hands on an actual time machine, then people are going to consider that a real credible threat.
I thought you were gonna say because now
So don't
if they
say that.
die, the FBI will knock on your door.
Well, that's true too, but you do this on like an almost daily basis. I expect this has happened to you already. I suspect you've been a suspect in at least 2 or 3 cases. You're like, no, I was just joking. I just don't like anybody. I don't actually want any ill will toward them, but it didn't
That's true.
happen to them.
Okay. For those of you who can't tell that I'm joking, I don't think that they should be killed, but they should be fired out of a cannon.
You got to stop saying things like that on the internet, man. You're gonna get us in trouble.
I love when you get like people who just assume that you're being serious, and it's like, oh, that's a legitimate death threat. Sure.
Just don't do that, Austin.
Yeah, I know. I
It's a
need
bad
to
it's a bad idea. I do like the part where Joe kind of is completely fed up, and she's like, "You people are all lunatics."
Yeah, that's pretty good.
She just freaks out and starts swearing at everybody, and she's like, there's not gonna be anybody to rule after you nuke everyone."
Yeah, apocalypse is bad for business.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, she needed to bring
You're all
Kingpin in.
you're all nuts. I I was I was by the end kind of disappointed with this.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to say.
I was not a big fan of this book. There's stuff in it that I enjoyed, uh, but my big thing is that I'm probably not going to remember this like moving forward. I even a week later I'm struggling to remember names and things, and like I feel like this is a book that probably won't really stick with me. It was a very similar experience to the Catwoman book we just read, except I think that was better.
And I like that a lot more than you did.
Mhm.
So I think it's actually quite a bit better than this. But
Yeah.
like I said, this has a really good set. When I say disappointing, I mean like I don't think it was bad from out the gate. I was really into it for a bit.
No, I think we were both really into it from the start, and then it just kind of lost us. And that's why I compare it to that Catwoman book, is that I was with that as well, and then it eventually lost me. But it's unfortunate.
I at least like, I don't know. The protagonist is never full on ruined for me. Like if she came back in something else, like I could get into a story with her again. I think.
Yeah, like if she got a chance to make the sequel to this, I don't know if I would like go off and read it immediately. But if we got it on ReQuest and it was good, I'd be excited. But
If she is announced as one of the characters in the Lantern show, I'm not gonna roll my eyes at that. Like I
yeah,
wouldn't, I wouldn't mind. I
it's
wouldn't
fine.
mind her being adapted there.
It would maybe be weird if we got her before like some of the bigger Green Lanterns, but
Well,
like
sure, yeah, but that's
it's
probably gonna get
not a
multiple
big deal.
seasons.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, if she shows up in that, that's fine. That's cool.
Um, some of the romance stuff, I don't know if I bought. Like at the beginning, we're introduced to the like you said, the other cop lady, and
Mhm.
they say like I guess she's bisexual, and they say that they tried a relationship and it didn't work, and then she dates or at least has kind of a one night stand with the counselor guy, and then you get to the end, and I I don't know if I buy that like all roads have led to now they make a romance work when they tried it before and now they're just friends. Like I don't know about that.
It feels like it's a matter of like I need somebody that I can date that has emotions, and this person that I was already dating, um, like we're now soulmates because she has emotions. But also, why is she flirting with Green Lantern if she doesn't have emotions? How does that
I
work?
So we make a huge deal out of how she's, Joe's the only person with emotions on this whole planet, and I never see the difference between her and anybody else, except for like token things where we're told this person's held back because just generically they don't have emotions, but they do though. Like, so it's this simple. This is the only example I need. Over and over again, you have characters that are not on the drug. Like definitely, unequivocally not on the drug, that in their dialogue balloon, before or after they speak, we have the word sigh. Emotion. Stop it. You're not sighing if you don't have emotions. That's all I need. Much less freaking shouting matches.
The twist at the end should have been that they all had emotions and they were just messing with Green Lantern.
That would have been great, actually. I know you're kind of joking, but I can see a twist where they convince everyone that they're in denial about it. They're like the Vulcans, only they don't even go as far as the Vulcans do in Stoicism, where they're not actually really controlling themselves that much, but it just doesn't occur to them to commit crimes because they don't think they have emotions. I don't know if that actually makes sense, but it would be interesting if the big reveal at the end was the drug, because again, it's a conspiracy, and I like this about it. The government is using the drug to control people and to make a lot of money and stuff. And again, it's kind of like the opioid crisis. So we have a war on drugs, but we're also using drugs to control people, right? And then
it's very opioids.
I think that's what she's doing with that. But
is,
what if it was a placebo?
Yeah, when I was gonna say, like, it could have been fun if maybe everyone was on the drug, but it's illegal, so nobody is outward about it.
Yeah.
And, people having emotions here and there would have been the tell. Because, like I said, early on, I had that where I was like, oh, maybe I'm supposed to pick up on that, but you're ultimately not.
Yeah.
So that could have been like a fun idea, like, yeah, everybody's on this drug, but it's illegal, so nobody's gonna say it. And Green Lantern's just kind of picking it up, from person to person, and she can have like a big freak out moment where she's like, like all of you are on this drug, like everyone from the government to like the lowest level, like
Yeah, that's a good idea too.
But
I don't know, that's ultimately, regardless of like how convoluted I think the mystery gets and stuff, the biggest issue is just it is built on a faulty premise. Like, you have to be more subtle about that.
Yeah, no,
if I'm supposed to buy that your characters don't have emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you said, even just down to word choice, like you're not going to use slang and stuff if you're emotionless.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, thanks a lot for listening and watching, guys. I really appreciate it. And thanks to Joe Turner for having us read about this Joe. And next time, we're going to watch an animated film that I didn't bother with when it came out back in the 90s, Austin, but I know a lot of people really like this movie. Matt Bat 68 wants us to watch The Prince of Egypt.
Oh, I've never seen that either. I've heard it's really good.
That's what we're doing.
I've heard it's really good, so I'm excited for that. That's going to be cool.
Hopefully that's streaming somewhere. We get our hands on it.
That's probably on Peacock, no? I would imagine.
Oh, maybe so.
Because DreamWorks.
Is that DreamWorks?
Yep. Yeah, that was like early DreamWorks before they switched over to computer animation.
Yeah, crazy.
I want to say that's either their first or second film.
I guess I didn't realize they ever did any 2D animation.
Yeah, they did quite a few, because they did that, Spirit, El Dorado, and Sinbad.
It is indeed on Peacock, it looks like.
That makes sense, yeah.
I think. Yes. You have to have premium to watch it, but it is there. Okay, so
we're doing that. I'll probably have to rent it because we don't have Peacock.
Yeah,
that's okay.
Yeah, I may rent it too, honestly, because there's not anything else I need to watch there right now. But Daniverse is their second after Ants. So you're saying they did a 3D movie and then they did a 2D movie and then they moved to 3D after that?
Well, because I think they did like a string of 2D animated movies after that, but yeah, that is interesting. I forgot that Ants is their first.
Daniverse says Road to El Dorado. Yeah, did Ants and Bugs Life come out the same year?
Yes.
I think they did. Isn't that
Yes.
weird?
It is weird, yeah.
I always thought Ants was the better movie, but I'm probably not right about that.
So,
Because I haven't gone back to it in a long time.
so Ants is 100% the better movie.
I've never liked Bugs Life that much. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, it's okay. It's they've made like worse certainly, but it's okay. Ants I remember liking quite a bit, but I haven't watched it in a few years.
See, I just keep assuming it probably doesn't hold up.
I mean, maybe, but like I feel like the people I talk to about Ants also really like Ants. I know when you do get a lot of criticism for that movie, it's visually, which I get. Like they all kind of look like California raisins.
Yep.
And like, yeah, but
I'm not sure how the script is now. Like, I know it was quite a bit edgier than you would expect, and it didn't feel 100% like a kid's movie.
like you got like Woody Allen's the main character.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, I should rewatch that movie. I remember it being pretty good.
Well, once again, folks, thanks a lot for watching. If you would like to make a request yourself, you can go to patreon.com/geekvolution. The $15 tier makes that possible. You can request a movie, a comic series like this. I'm going to ask that we don't get too many 12-issue maxi series, if at all humanly possible. I know we have at least one more of those that we've got to do in a couple of months, but I don't know. Try to stick closer to 6 or 8 if at all possible. But I know something like this is kind of awkward because if we review just the first 6, we get half a story. Mm-hmm. We reviewed a thing tonight that just should have been a 6-issue miniseries. Like, sorry, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But yeah, there is about a 4.5 month wait right now, just so you know, and you don't have to stay on the tier that whole time. You can make your request, send me a message through Patreon, and stick on Patreon for at least 1 month. Let that $15 roll over, and that gets you on the list for when we get to you. We do these weekly, and sorry we missed it last week, but I was about to go out of town and could not get this all read ahead of time. So that's why we did it this week. Anyway, we'll see you again real soon. I've got a Captain Logan show tomorrow night at 7 Central. Hope to see you there. And in the meantime, once again, I was Captain Logan, and Austin the Day Ghost.
What, Cap, do you hear that?
What?
Bum, 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 bum.
We haven't announced that yet, have we?
Nope.
Yeah, we're doing that on Friday. We're going to do a commentary on the Batman.
Yep.
You know what we should do? We should just sleeper drop it. If you watched all the way to the end of the Far Sector review, you'll know about it.
All 3 people that made it.
We got 10
Now
people right now. They're going to have to spread the word. That's the only way people are going to find out about that. About that commentary.
We should label that commentary as a No Way Home commentary again, like with 89.
We should, but then you get there, and some people will be more excited, and some people will be less excited. Because, we're about what the corrupt government in Far Sector is about. Dividing people.
Exactly. And I don't have emotions, so I don't care what you think.
I just feel like that was kind of, that was a lot less emotional than anything any of these people do in this book. All right, we'll see you later, folks. Bye, everybody.
See ya. Oh, wait a minute.
Are you serious?
Sorry. What is the French word for win?
What?
It's the trivia question. Bye, everybody.
That's the quiz. Bye, folks.